What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Armikrog on the Games Rock channel, where this is going to be the part where we read through the second half of the Hall of Records. We read through the first half last time, and now this looks like all there is to the Hall of Records. Not nearly as much as was in the Neverhood, but it won't take as long to get through. And it's all one story, instead of being a bunch of disconnected stories. Alright, punishment and crime. Oh, and where we left off in the story, the character Zerk escaped from the mine with the heart of the mountain, and then he was led to the woman he loves, Meva, and they're going off together, and they're not 100% sure it's true love, but they're finding that out. So, punishment and crime. We came to an area where the terrain suddenly grew steep. We struggled to ascend, clutching at trees and bushes to pull ourselves upward. The road off to our right was very tempting, but even though we were far from the mine, I still feared exposure if we walked openly on a road so close to populated areas. We climbed over a particularly large boulder only to be greeted by a wide area of broken stones. The trees and bushes were gone, leaving us exposed. It was no use hiding. We decided we might as well go up onto the road. I took Meva's hand and helped her up to the slope to the road. When we reached the top, she didn't let go. We walked hand in hand, then arm in arm. The unit of questions had grown sporadic as our minds ran out of things to talk about, so we walked in silence, just happy to be together. Meva's footsteps... I don't know why that happened. Meva's footsteps had a different cadence than mine. I had a shuffle and a kick that developed from walking through dark mine shafts. The shuffle was to make sure there were no unseen boulders in my path. The kick was to knock smaller rocks off the path, as a courtesy that the mine was coming up behind. Meva, however, glided over the ground with a grace that matched her upbringing amid a class that valued poise, balance, and dance. We rounded a corner, and there was a small army of royal guards who had been hiding along the side of the road. I hated myself for not being more vigilant. They were all highly trained, fully armed, strike-proof vested guards. There were two groups, one dressed in red, the other in black. Red and black, it's their color scheme. Their leader was the tallest one, the one they called Baboot. He was the only one wearing both red and black. All their faces were obscured by helmets sporting tall red plumes. "Stop!" commanded the one they called Baboot. We complied. Meva clutched my arm tightly. The one called Baboot quickly motioned to the guards dressed in red, calling each of their names. "Regiment Blood, Tannik, Straybog, Balabal, Albanoid, Yorick, Alabar, Ken, Casador, Hanaxidix, Hanaxidix? I should just change your name to Bob. Flurbert, Ayaka Curran, John Aubrey, Roboburger Roger Goggles, Roscott Mitchell Hotcoals." The red guards held up their hands to show the projectile needles strapped to their palms. "Step away from her!" Baboot called to me. They clearly knew who we were. We were pretty easy to identify, me in my dirty rags, and Meva in her fine garments of the upper class, a minor and a princess. I tried to step away from Meva, but she pulled me in even tighter, then opened my cloak and pulled it around herself to block any shot that might come our way. "No, you can't shoot him without hitting me!" Baboot chuckled and nodded to the guards dressed in black and quietly called each of their names as they pointed their arms at us, taking aim. "Regiment Death, Dogleth, Metalonot, Fang Laserheart, Edgar Barb Lemmings, Flippy Jackerson, Ethel Scoot, Oli Cannoli, Marmoset Lips, Estridamus Undershaft, Anthony A.J. Reed, Dr. Spot Plum Breath Hansen, that was my exit Louis, the Great Fifi." I had no doubt they were good enough shots to hit me without harming Meva. Meva yelled again. "If you shoot him, I'll pluck the dart out of him and stab myself. Then what will you tell my father as he removes your heads?" All the guards remained ready to fire, but hesitated, then looked to Baboot for direction as they weren't sure what to do. The double-cross. The one called Baboot looked at Meva and said, "Is this not your kidnapper?" Meva shouted back at him, "My father is my kidnapper, my ex-fiancé is my kidnapper, loneliness is my kidnapper, but this miner is not my kidnapper." Baboot paused, then called out two of the guards, one from each group. "Tonic, Dockleth." As the two guards stepped forward, Baboot ordered all the others to return to their base. The small sense of relief I felt by the exit of the guards was quickly wiped away as the one called Baboot slowly leaned in to whisper to the other two guards. With eyes fixed on us, they were clearly formulating some sort of plan. Suddenly, the two guards charged at us. I pushed Meva away. "Run!" I screamed. The first guard swung his needled fist at me. I ducked, bringing my fist up into his stomach. He fell back, clutching himself, struggling for air. The second guard kicked out my legs, and I fell onto my back. He brought his needle down on me, but I caught his wrist, stopping the needle just inches from my chest. So we strained against each other for a moment. Suddenly, he went limp and rolled off me. I looked up to see Baboot standing over me with his needle hand pointed toward me, but suddenly he lowered it. Then I realized he shot both of the other guards. The needles protruded from their backs. Meva and I shared puzzled looks. The one called Baboot took off his helmet, revealing long hair that fell free, almost reaching the ground. "Quace!" Meva cried out and ran to her. Aw, they embraced. Meva later told me that Quace had been one of her playmates when they were growing up. She'd gotten her name once she had bet her whole inheritance on a single hand of cards and won with a Quace. It was clear to me in that moment that Meva was no ordinary person. In the company of Quace, she seemed elevated to a royal position again. They talked of nannies, summer cottages, exotic pets, travels to meet dignitaries in other countries, and little sandwiches with the crusts cut off. Finally, the conversation turned to the situation at hand. Quace told us that there was a massive hunt going on for us. A lifetime of wages had been promised to anyone who turned us in. The only condition was that Meva must be brought in alive, and I must be brought in dead. Quace opened a map and showed us the placement of guards and which areas to avoid. Luckily, the search was concentrated away from us because they thought I was heading in the opposite direction. Quace knew of a safe house that at one time belonged to an old widow who later died of food poisoning. That sounds like something that should be a reference to something back. Meva was puzzled by this news and asked how Quace knew of this safe house. For years, Quace had worked with the criminal underground, helping thieves escape from the royal family's dungeons. Meva was stunned at first, but realized this could work in our favor. Quace told us that there was one problem with the safe house. If we stayed in it for more than 2 days, we would be transformed into baby goats. That seems random. Meva pointed her finger up the river on the map not far from the safe house. Quace told us to find a boat and float down to the town of Grint. The town was rural, and many outsiders came to buy and sell, so we would not stand out. Then we could make our way to yet another cottage in the mountains. This place was even more rural, so nobody would find us for as long as we wanted to stay, and we wouldn't be turned into baby goats. Quace gave us the map. I took the backpacks from the dead guards, giving one to Meva and taking the other one myself. Meva and Quace met each other. Quace begged forgiveness for her treachery. Meva said, "I cannot pardon you as a member of the royal family, but I do as a friend." They embraced, and we left Quace standing there alone in the road. We got off the main path at the point Quace indicated on the map. For several days, we threaded our way through trees and over streams until we finally reached the safe house. It was a simple shack of wood with a roof of straw. Inside, the air smelled of mold, and the floor was bare dirt. The walls were covered with simple paintings of goats. The fireplace made of stacked stones towered up through the thatched roof. I couldn't imagine staying long, even without the threat of turning into a baby goat. Using blankets from the guards' packs, I made a bed for Meva beside the fireplace and a second for myself in front of the door. That night, as I lay in bed watching the light of the fire dance across the tangled straw of the ceiling, I thought about what Meva had done to protect me from the guards and their needles. Finally, I asked her the question I hadn't found the courage to ask before. "Do you want your dream of marriage to come true for us?" "Are you asking me to marry you, Zerk?" I thought for a moment. I was nobody, a lowly miner, and she was not only of royal blood, but beautiful and true. No, I couldn't think of that. I squeezed my eyes shut. "Meva, will you marry me?" "I will." "Ooh. Gonna get married. Or how are they gonna do that?" We left the safe house the next day. Although Quace said we could stay 2 days, neither of us wanted to risk turning into a baby goat. Avoiding the trails, we made our way down the river Quace had shown us on the map. We reached the river and turned, following it downstream, hoping to find a boat. After several hours, we did find a boat tethered to a tree with just 2 oars inside. It seemed like the boat was there just for us, but I suppose this is what anyone who steals says. I helped Meva into the boat and climbed on myself. Cutting the rope, I rowed out into the main current of the stream. After that, the current did work for us. The significance of Grint. Our boat drifted downstream while we slept under a blanket. When awakened, but the chirp of cricks, I would put my head up, look around, and adjust the oars to keep us in the center of the current. Meva slept on my chest, mumbling in her dreams. Her eyes darted back and forth under her eyelids. The only word I could understand was, "I am giant." And then she would sigh and be silent again. A quadricrane cocked his head back, poised to spear a passing fill-frog or fill-fish. The water stirred a few feet in front of him, and the stirring swirled away from him, then closer, meandering this way than that before the hunter's beak rode into the water and ended the dance. It caught neither a fill-frog nor a fill-fish. Instead, it gulped down a younger quadricrane. The sun came up and a shadow came over us, cast on a bridge. We were near a small town, probably Grint. Grint was an agricultural town. Farmers brought their wares here to sell. It would be a good place for us to find food and satisfy our grumbling bellies. Once past the bridge, I pulled our board up on the shore, hid it in the trees. We made sure the boat was hidden just in case those who pursued us looked along the river. We climbed up the base, then over boulders. A bustling farmer's market unfurled before us. We tried to blend in, though seemingly unnecessary, for no one paid any attention to us. Meva found an acro fruit vendor and gave him a few coins for 2 portions of fruit. The people of Grint could be heard whistling a tune that was their anthem. I tried to whistle it too, but not to deceive them into thinking I was one of them. No outsider could ever whistle a town's theme in quite the same way as the locals. But trying to whistle a tune meant that you were friendly, and you deferred to the local cultures and traditions out of respect. Attempting to whistle a local tune might gain a shopkeeper's favor, and find his prices may suddenly come down for you, or the local law enforcement may choose not to stop you or harass you. I gripped Meva's hand and pulled it close to my chest. I loved the way she tucked her head against my shoulder. Her feet now walked in a rhythm that matched my own, so she could remain close to me. My cloak nearly covered her to people who might look at us from the side. Meva kept looking over my shoulder, so finally I asked what she was looking at. Her eyes darted to me, then back up over my shoulder. "Is that a temple up there?" I turned and saw a rectangular room that twisted up into the air. Little windows cut through the sides, and a ring of gold spikes adorning its top like a crown. She continued, "They perform marriages up there." I did not know much about these temples. "Are you saying that you want to? I mean, now?" She smiled. My heart skipped a beat. We hiked up to the temple and came before the priest. I had a distrust of priests simply because priests were picked in a secret ceremony behind doors, and nobody knew the criteria for which they were selected. This always bothered me, even though it's been done for thousands of years. He addressed me first. "Zork, I do not know you, so forgive me if I ask you questions I ought to know if we are members of the same congregation." "I'm not a member of any congregation," I said, hoping to tweak him just a little. He ignored my comment and put a hand on my shoulder. "You are known as Zork?" "I am." He gestured to Meva. "You are known as Meva?" "I am." He turned back to me and asked, "Zork, will you forsake all others?" "I will." "Will you keep Meva the focus of your desire?" "I will." "Will you be a loving father to your children?" "I will." "Finally, will you die for her?" "Without hesitation," I said. He took his hand off my shoulder and put our hands together. This was a gesture that my role was to be performed regardless of her oath. "Meva, will you forsake all others?" "I will." "Will you remind Zork of the complexities of life?" "I will." "Will you only bear the children of Zork and no other?" "I will." "Finally, will you submit to him? Will you defer to him in conflict?" "With hesitation," she said. He declared us married. The color began to drain out of me and into her through her right hand. Her color did the same, moving into my right hand and up my arm as my own color receded. When the colors had been exchanged, we kissed. So does that mean that each other's color, or did their colors blend together? I don't know. Find out. Maybe. The priest escorted us to a narrow door at the back of the temple, used only by newlyweds such as ourselves. The path beyond was rocky and twisting. It was often so difficult that we had to help each other to continue. Finally, it ended in a small garden with a spring of cool running water. Leaving Grint. We left Grint, the food in our packs replenished, and our hearts united. Meva recognized an area on a map called the Valley of the Drunk. Her grandfather had taken her there many years before when she was a child. It was a big memory to her, because its connection to her grandfather was special. I knew she wished to go there, and so we took a detour to see the valley as part of our honeymoon. Valley of the Drunk. I told Meva about my experience of becoming the mountain and showed her the purple fuzzball, but I didn't let her touch it. The extent of its power was unclear. What if she touched it and was transferred into a grain of sand? How could I ever find her again? Meva told me that it was her grandfather who started the search for the legendary heart of the mountain many years before. He convinced a mining company to dig for it, promising them they would own it once his soul was safely transferred to a younger, more virile body. I started thinking of a device that could control the heart of the mountain's soul-transferring powers, but even though I was a capable builder, I didn't know how to make the device I conceived. Meva knew of a tribe of rock beings called Drunk, who lived in secret. They were the guardians of the mountains. Meva's grandfather had signed a treaty with them, which allowed the blank mining crews to dig the richest veins, while avoiding the Drunk's sacred chambers. Her grandfather had honored every word of the treaty. It was the key to the company being able to mine where so many others had failed. Previous companies had tried to dig farther and deeper without approval of the Drunk. Then the mining would inevitably break into a sacred Drunk chamber. The Drunk would demand the operation stop. Fighting would break out, but the Drunk always won. They are, after all, made of rock. Meva said that the Drunk were capable of building complex mechanical structures from a magic rock. They had a mysterious and powerful device that allowed them to create nearly anything. This could be just what we needed to control and house the purple fuzzball. And now it's just the first column. 3 to go. Meva led us to a narrow canyon where walls stood adorned with strange carvings I couldn't decipher. Every angle was perfect and the walls were smooth as glass. I realized that the canyon hadn't been formed naturally. It had been carved by the Drunk. We came to a circle of polished white stones inlaid into the floor. Meva said that in order for us to see the Drunk, the stones must be stepped on in a precise pattern. Once this was done, the Drunk would come. Her grandfather had studied these stones and eventually discovered the pattern. The pattern had been taught to her when she was a child, as a sort of dance. She thought she was learning a kata, or a family ritual. Not until much later did she realize it was the key to unlocking the Drunk's stones. She completed the dance, and the final stone she stepped on sank into the ground 2 inches. I could hear the clinking of underground mechanisms as stone slid against stone. Spires of minerals covered in crystals sprouted from the ground in neat rows. Black tangled orchards of petrified trees rose against the canyon walls. All was silent. We stood waiting for 3 hours. At one point, Meva pointed behind me, and I spun to see 3 stone beings. They had a simple form, like a children's drawing. Their heads were huge rectangles with coarse holes cut clear through the head, allowing the light of sky to shine through. Their bodies were rectangular stone. Their legs and arms were slabs. 2 Drunk pulled the third from a white stone monolith. They pulled out the body, setting it aside. Then they pulled an arm and hung it on the body. This process continued until the third Drunk was completed. Did you see that, Zerk? They're giving birth! Meva whispered to me. Dang. The newly formed Drunk was the same size as the other 2, but he walked awkwardly, staggering as he guided his first steps. One of the Drunks used his finger to carve a symbol onto the new Drunk's forehead. "You will hunt for us," he said. "Your name shall be Hunt." When this was done, the drunk turned to us. He welcomed Meva. He said he knew her from long ago and she had come to the valley with her grandfather. Meva bowed. The drunk said he'd seen her as a baby, and he never forgot a bloodline. His name was Grell. He was the one who used the creation table and gave names. Meva asked him if he could build a device for us to contain the heart of the mountain, and motioned for me to show it. Grell looked long and hard at the purple fuzzball when I held it up to him. Then he said, "We have no use for this because we cannot die, but this has been hunted for by mortals as long as time has spun. Everyone who found it before you was either killed or vanished. Does that mean I will die also, or was I meant to have it? Neither or both." He motioned for us to follow him to the monolith, which he called the Skeeve table. Grell stirred the tiny white surface of the monolith like it was liquid. It didn't move at all like solid rock. After a moment, he drew out a device that had an open hatch and 2 hinged arms on either side. Taking the purple fuzzball from me, he placed it in the top compartment and snapped the lid shut. Grell handed the device back to me. These mechanical arms can pull the soul from one thing and hold it temporarily in the machine, or transfer it into another object or body. Okay, so I guess that harnesses the power of the fuzzball. Grell put the corner of his stone head on Meva's hand as if to kiss it. "Visit us again, Meva. Now go in peace." Leaving drunk. We left the Valley of the Drunk and continued our trek to the cottage Quace had shown us on the map. It was well off the main path, surrounded by thick woods, a much more inviting place to stay than the safe house, with no threat of turning into baby goats. The roof was tiled with bark shingles and the walls were of split logs. The front door was flanked by small windows. Inside the cottage was dry and warm. There was a rocking chair, a rug made of Angora elephant, a framed bed, and a painting over the fireplace. After dumping our packs on the bed, we went outside and explored the area around the cabin. Not far off, there was a grove of wild makeberry trees. Their branches hung low from the weight of the fruit on them. I plucked one and we shared it, the sugary juice running down our chins. To the south, a stream trickled down from nearby mountain peaks, runoff from the thawing snows many miles above us. I've looked back on our time in that cabin and longed to return to those memories. It was the best time of our life. We were free from worry and concern, and our love continued to deepen. I can think of only one moment when it all went stink bad: the baby gardens. Meva went outside in the cool of the morning and paced off a large square field, then a second field, in the shape of a giant circle. The square field was for boys, and the circular was for girls. By our custom, it was mandatory to build both fields, and to decide which field would house the seed only after both were complete. Some couples demanded only males, some demanded only females, some demanded the exact same amount of each sex, some decided to plant all of the offspring in one season, still others chose not to plant any seed at all. We had long walks around the 2 fields, Meva gleaning every weed from the area so that it looked pristine. All rocks and pebbles were moved to the outskirts of the fields, making an accidental sweeping rock path around them. She set up border markers of stick, then drew a string taut between them. We gathered smaller sticks and placed them along the stream to mark the border. She sang a song about the family inside the border and how one day they would meet the family outside the border. The land was rich for reproduction. It came time to plant. I exhaled and a small sack lowered from the bottom of my torso. Where I'm from, the sacks have 3 black marks on them. 2 of them look like circles for eyes, and 1 mark below looks like a smile. Inside of the sack contains any number of seeds from 1 to 99. We're forbidden from checking the count of seeds in the sack, so the day of planting is always a surprise. The next part of the planting ritual is up to Meva. She pokes her finger into the right eye mark of the sack, and the line that looks like a mouth opens up and says, "Yarr!" And the number of seeds we had to plant that day come out of the mouth. In our case, 1 seed came out and landed in Meva's open hand. Next, she was to choose which field would receive the seed. Would it be the square field or the circular field? But before she could make her choice, something terrible happened. The seed withered in her hand and blew apart in a puff of smoke. Shock came over Meva's face as she considered the seed obliteration in her hand. She looked up at me to see how I would respond. I wasn't sure how to act. The first thing that came to mind was what people would call her from now on: obliterator. I pushed that word out of my mind because obliterator. No, not Meva. She would not be known as an obliterator. It's true that other obliterators who didn't want to be known by that name often claimed that they never tried to have children in the first place. But that was hard to do for the couples who more publicly built their square and circle fields in thickly populated areas. Sometimes the husband took to blame, claiming that no seed ever produced from the sack in the first place. He would be known as seedless. That's the name so shameful that we would shout that curse to our enemies on the other side of the battlefield. Seedless, seedless, seedless. Meva wept in my arms and I said I could leave and find another female. I told her that I would rather be married to... Oh, no, she said that I could leave. I told her I would rather even be married to an obliterator than any other non-Meva female. She had the desperate idea to use the soul transfer device to put her into the body of a viable female, but that idea was wrought with difficulties. First would be to find a female who wanted to be pulled from her body into Meva's. Why would a female want to be removed from her own body? Perhaps if she had an incurable disease, if she was going to die anyway, she'd want to switch bodies with Meva. Then Meva could bring us a baby and we could figure out something else to do with her incurable disease. Perhaps I could build her a mechanical body in which to house her soul in case of emergency. Meva was willing to do this, but I didn't like the idea of using the soul transfer machine lightly. It was for emergencies, and it needed much more experimentation before we knew the limits of its power. I wasn't sure how trustworthy the housing device we got from the rock people would be. What would happen if the device failed? What would happen if the device killed the purple fuzzball in the middle of a soul transfer? I assumed the body would be obliterated, and the soul would be cast into the air, a homeless ghost in search of a body. No, experimenting on Meva would not do. She was already sad enough by not being able to bring us children. We didn't turn the 2 fields under, but we did not keep nature from claiming the ground of the forest again. Trees grew in those fields, male trees where the square was, and female trees where the circle field used to be. Rocks tumbled back over the ground, male rocks where the square field used to be, and female rocks where the circle used to be. The weeds came. Meva and I never brought up what happened in those 2 fields again. Artism. 5 years passed, and we had thoroughly researched the soul transfer device. I took most of the notes, and Meva formally put everything in her secret journal. We concluded our experiments, having grown weary of research, and put the soul transfer device in storage under the bed. With the diversion of research over, I noticed Meva spent long hours staring out the window. She was looking at the baby gardens, now barely visible under a thick patch of leaves. One day, Meva went outside to draw shapes in the soil using sticks. She told me it was a new art theory she was working on called draw-shapeism. Then she pushed sticks into the ground and called it stickism. Not to be outdone, I piled rocks in front of our cabin and called it rockism. Soon her stick artworks began to fill the yard, leaving very little room for my rock expressions. With no place left on our property to properly display my art, I decided to pioneer a new, undiscovered genre of fine art. I plucked pine cones from the surrounding trees and rehung them from the branches. I called it pineconism. Meva thought I was mocking her art. I asked her why she didn't think I was just mocking rockism. She claimed intuition. She said that pineconism was redundant and derivative, which infuriated me. Out of spite, I tied the pine cones onto the exact place from where I plucked them, inciting more criticism from Meva. She said she couldn't tell if the pine cones were growing naturally from the tree or if I'd plucked and tied them back onto the branch. I feigned offense and yelled, "You don't have an eye for art, or you would recognize pineconism when you saw it." She declared a new form of pineconism where the artist did not pluck the pine cone from the branch every time before declaring it a work of art. I thought this was obviously silly and said as much. She yelled, "You're just as jealous of my superior form of expression, sir. You know that I've discovered an authentic movement known as pineconism. You're not even making art, Meva. What you're doing is called nature, not art." She glared at me. "That's what all stupid people said about great art when it was first discovered. They didn't have the mind to understand such things. I'm shocked to know that you're one of those people." I pointed to the ground. "Fine, I just discovered groundism." It's when the ground is just the ground. In fact, the whole world is already my work of art because it's all covered with the ground. I'll sign my name to the world. I snapped a stick from the ground and signed my name to the ground. Meva's face turned red with anger. "You just broke one of my stickist artworks." "Well, there weren't any other sticks I could use to sign my name," I shouted back. "Someone picked them all and stuck them into the ground." That night, Meva moved out of our bed and set up a pile of clothes to sleep on in the corner. I saw the stupidity of our fight and said so, but she wouldn't talk to me and would not return to our bed. That night I didn't sleep. When we slept together, I rested my hand on her hip. The empty space she left in the bed was haunting. I kept looking over at Meva in the corner. I couldn't believe I had been so stupid to her. I realized that she was really trying to be an artist. She needed to create. She hadn't started stickism to spite me. She was expressing herself. I was a fraud. I was the one acting in spite. That lonely bed was a warning that if I continued to disrespect my treasured wife, I just may end up alone forever. The next morning I saw her stirring, so I went and lay down beside her. I apologized to her and admitted my spite. She held up her hand to quiet me. "I curse my love of art. I put it before you. I forgive you, but I don't want to pursue stickism or my fraudulent form of pineconism anymore." She took my hand and placed it on her hip. She said, "I have a new form of art. I call it Zirkism, and I will only ever be a Zirkist. And I am a Mevaist. I will only be obsessed with Mevaism forever." Research. Research! I threw myself into the study of the soul transfer machine. Meva documented everything in a secret journal, undisclosed location. Trust me, don't even bother trying. When I first turned the machine on, we could feel it drawing power from the surrounding environment. If we used it too often, the surrounding trees would droop from exhaustion and the grass would lose its color. Though we didn't feel anything, it was my suspicion that the soul transfer machine could even be drawing its power from Meva and I. With the use of some handmade baskets and some string, I was able to trap small spurs on which to experiment. We always had a few in cages along the back wall of our cabin and took them outside when weather permitted. The first specimen I caught was an adult spur that looked healthy. We called him Specimen A. I put him in one of the transfer machine's claws and had the other claw touching a rock. This was to emulate my first experience in the blank mines when I touched the purple fuzzball and went into the mountain. I pushed the button to power the device and it began to hum. Then, with the hook of a switch, Specimen A suddenly went limp, and the soul transfer machine cut its own power. Meva pushed with fingers through Specimen A's feathers, feeling for a pulse, but there was none to be found. We inspected the rock. I picked it up and held it up to my face. It was cool within room temperature, but there was no visible signs that anything was different. "If you're in there, little Spurd, hold on tight and we'll bring you back to your body," I said. The claw of the machine was once again attached to the rock. The claw of Specimen A remained, and we turned the machine on. With the flip of the switch, the Spurd sprang back to life. Its head snapped up and its feet clenched. We kept Specimen A in a cage just long enough to make sure there were no lasting side effects. Later that spring, we set Specimen A loose, and he built a nest in a tree that grew from what used to be our circular field. It was not clear exactly what happened in the event of soul transfer. We were not sure if the soul got extracted from the body and that caused the heart to stop, or if the soul transfer stopped at the body's heart, which released the soul to be transferred. Okay. How are we doing on time? Okay. Maybe a little bit long, but we'll get through it. Meva and I spent many weeks trying to come up with an experiment that would give us clear results to our hypothesis. Many other experiments were conducted, most of them mundane. I won't bore you with the details, but I'll bore you with the results. We found that most living bodies could go without a soul for some amount of time. It may only be a few seconds, but none of the bodies could survive without a soul for longer than 2 minutes under normal room conditions. We tried this soul transfer in the winter on the hibernating hamster, and its body survived after 4 minutes without a soul, but most didn't survive that long of an ordeal. There were problems with the bodies we were using, and the stopped part removed the ability to deliver oxygen to the subject's brain. So some soul transfers were successful, but the brain damage to the body was often so great that the Spurd was incapable of flight, had no memory, or died sometime later. We hated being the cause of these Spurd's deaths, so we tried to return their souls to their bodies within 2 minutes. The disintegration of Specimen X. Specimen X was lost when we unhooked the claw from the Spurd's body midway through a transfer. The body went transparent and then vanished completely. It was unclear what happened to the Spurd's soul, but we could hear it chirping in the air around us even after the body was disposed. This was strange, since the Spurd's soul wasn't attached to a body's vocal cords, yet both Meva and I could hear it. Specimen X's chirping went more and more distant before it went silent, never to be heard again. It was unclear to us if the body was disintegrated by choice of the purple fuzzball, or because of the disconnect of the soul transfer machine. This brings us to Specimen Y. During the soul transfer of Specimen Y, I prodded the purple fuzzball with a stick, and everything in the room came to a stop. The lamp in the room remained lit, but it went dim. For a moment, I experienced what Specimen Y was feeling, and at the same time I could see his body splitting from his soul. I felt my heart beating in my chest and saw my body from Specimen Y's point of view. I felt terrified. My body looked like a giant poking the purple fuzzball with a stick and standing across my little Spurd body. The room went bright white, and I was slammed back under my dirt body. Meva and I were flung across the room, our bodies pressing against the wall by an unseen force. When the room went back to normal, Specimen Y's body was gone, as was the rock his soul was supposed to be cast into. The stick was still in my hand, but it made chirping sounds. The stick chirped for several days, but faded as the days went on until the voice died entirely. The visit. We were eating breakfast when the cabin was shaken. It stopped. An intermittent hum came from the backyard. We rushed out to find a spaceship covered in stars floating just above the ground. It was half the size of a cabin. We walked around it. I put my hand on the hull. It was cool to the touch, and the ship moved even under the slightest pressure of my hand like a balloon. "I wonder if it has a door," I said. Then, just as if by coincidence, the edge of the door appeared. Then it disappeared again. Meva saw it too. We tried to find the edge of the door with our fingers, but it remained smooth aside from 2 large gashes to the left of where the door was. "I wonder if someone's inside." Again, the edge of the door appeared only slightly, but enough to allow sound to escape from the ship's interior. "Wah! Wah!" came a cry from inside. Not the cry of something big, but of something small. That sounded like a child, Meva guessed. "We have to get in." As if moved by her demand, the hatch opened wide, a small set of stairs extended to the ground. The cry came louder now that the hatch was open. We couldn't see inside because white lights flooded from inside. Meva was halfway upstairs before I grabbed her arm. "Meva, we don't know if it's safe." "Wah!" came the baby cry again. There was fire in Meva's eyes. "Someone needs us. We'll find out if it's safe later." She pulled me up into the bright light. I stumbled on the steps and then we were inside. Meva tripped over something beyond the door and she gasped. We stood there for a moment, waiting for our eyes to adjust to the light. From inside the craft, it was hard to make out any sounds beyond the hum of the engines and the crying. Finally, through squinted eyes, we saw what Meva had tripped on. 2 beings lay on the floor together, arm in arm. I would have thought they were asleep, but their faces were gaunt, their skin already stretching around the shape of their skulls, eyeballs dried and sunken. Meva covered her face. I knew what had killed them. I'd seen it before in the mines. When a miner was being punished for something particularly terrible, he'd have his rations taken away. These were the effects of starvation. Again the crying. This time Meva stepped over the corpses and went in search of the source. What if it's a trap? That cry could be a universal distress signal to attract victims. Maybe this isn't a ship. What if it's a living entity and hopes to kill and eat us? "You have a great imagination, Zerk," Meva called over her shoulder. I followed. We passed through a small room that caught my attention. Wires traced their way across the ground, the ceiling, walls, and floor. They came together at a power grid covered in little crystals inserted in the gaps. The crystals were a dull greenish color. In a small chamber, Meva found a baby in a padded pod, chained into a console. The room was filled with a stench of feces. When Neva lifted the child from the bed, it was easy to see that the smell was coming from her overflowing diaper. Even its pod was smeared with it. "Zurg, quick, give me your robe," Neva said. Neva removed the dirty wrapping and tossed it back into the pod. Taking my robe, she gently wrapped the child. Though slowly, the child seemed comforted by its newfound freedom from the soggy diaper. Her cries sputtered to a stop. Neva rocked the girl in her arms, singing softly. The baby watched her with wide eyes. The little thing spoke. "Pee!" Okay, this is, yeah. This comes full circle. This is obviously the same P, or, well, maybe it's not the same P, but it is P. And these are most likely the two parents that we saw in that one sequence. She burped a green bubble. I popped the bubble, and a small crystal fell from it, landing on the floor. It looked just like the crystals I had seen inserted into the grid. She burped the bubble. Okay. This one is bright green. The baby nuzzled her head into Meva's arms, her eyes closing in exhaustion. Meva looked around the room. "She hasn't been changed for days," Meva observed. It didn't make sense that the two beings on the stairs starved to death while the child seemed to be so well fed. I turned the crystal over in my hand, trying to understand, then it came to me. "They starved themselves to feed the child," I said. "The crystals came from her. They power the ship. She is our only chance for survival. After they died, the ship ran out of power and drifted into our backyard." Neva smiled. "She found us, Zurg. We couldn't. She found us. You did see if the ship landed, right?" I shook my head. "On the female baby garden. She'll be our child." I saw the renewed look of hope in Neva's eyes. Though I doubted any cosmic will was bent on bringing us this female child, I didn't want to hurt Neva's feelings. Whatever the cause of this coincidence, it was a good thing for Neva's heart to have a child in her arms, a child that needed her. We took Pia off the ship and brought her into the house. That night she slept between us and we could hear her breathing. I put my hand on Neva's head. She put her hand on the baby's back. Just before we dipped into a deep and peaceful sleep, I heard Neva say, "You're safe now, P. I love you." A giggle, a burp, pop, a crystal clatters on the floor. The signal. There were several mornings that Neva dreamt the same thing. She saw P being born in the center of a planet hundreds of thousands of years ago. The dream was strange enough, but its recurrence was troubling. Wow. P is not a regular living being if she's hundreds of thousands of years old and still a baby. P is a planet. I'm calling it P is a planet. A baby planet. Another oddity was P's diet. It was non-existent. Again and again, Neva tried to get P to eat something, but she would just laugh at it again until she burped up a green bubble. In the corner of the cabin lay a burlap sack full of green crystals. "She's not eating, sir, and she doesn't even seem hungry." It was quite the puzzle. We both seen her waste inside the ship, so she had to eat something, or at least be capable of it. Neva held P close, and the little green baby smiled, wrinkled her nose, and then burped a huge green bubble from in the air. I popped it, and it revealed a slightly larger green crystal, about the size of an egg. I picked up the crystal and examined it. It reminded me of something we had once found in the mine. We had found a crystal similar in shape and size, but it was blue. After discovering it, Joxton Rexon was noticeably excited. He ripped it from my hands and examined it in the light of one of our headlamps. He said it was Catonium. He said something about selling it and buying a new house. He slipped it into his pocket, and we never saw it again. Could these little green crystals be similar? That evening, we were sitting on the front porch, enjoying the cool mountain air. Neva was teasing P with a little straw doll she made, and P was giggling as usual. I examined the crystal. There was a low hum, not from the crystal, but from beyond the trees, from the valley road. What I saw was like a boot to the stomach. 3 military hoverpods stopped on the road. Scores of soldiers poured from them and disappeared into the trees between us. "How'd they find us?" Neva cried. I looked down at the green crystal in my hand. P was emitting a source of power that would show up on the radar of every military vehicle across the country. How could I be so stupid? They weren't coming for us, they were coming for her. We ran back into the cabin. I dug out the sock with the abominate's finger. Even if I managed to kill some of the soldiers, I'd never stop all of them. Escape was our only option. "Quick, Neva, to the ship!" We ran out the back door just as soldiers reached the front of the cabin. "Open the hatch!" I yelled at the ship, and it obeyed. Meva scrambled in with P, but then I remembered something. The soul transfer device was still inside the cabin. I nodded to send Meva into the ship as I ran back to the cabin. "Close hatch!" I yelled over my shoulder, and the ship obeyed. Inside the cabin, the front door groaned against its rusty hinges as the soldiers pounded the other side. I saw shadows pass the side windows. They were going around the back. I fell onto my belly in front of the bed and pulled the device out. I was nearly back outside when the front door gave, bursting inwards. Darts bit into the door frame around me, and I slammed the back door closed on it. Soldiers came around the sides of the cabin. "Open!" I screamed at the ship as darts pinged off the ship's door frame. I dove inside before the stairs even had time to extend. I shouted for the ship hatch to close. Not a moment too soon. Boom! A concussion bomb made the ship reel. Meva was thrown against the wall, her arms shielding P. I held out the vest for her to see. She nodded. Another concussion hit the ship, throwing me to the floor. "They're shelling us!" she yelled. We ran to the control room together, but none of the controls made any sense. Meva was in despair. "How do we take off?" Suddenly, I remembered the green crystal in my pocket. It was a bright green, like the sun casting through a new spring leaf. Power! The ship needed power. I raced down the hall and into the room with the grid. I tore out a dull green crystal and threw it aside. I inserted the new bright green crystal in its place. A voice from overhead said, "Plutonium accepted, 12% charge." Instantly, the ship turned on an unseen pivot and shot upwards, pushing us into the floor. The whole room rumbled and shook as we gained speed. From where I lay on the floor, I could see Meva. I couldn't get up to be with her. She was pinned to the wall, clutching little P in her hands, swinging against the pressure. She tried to hide the fear in her face. All went silent. We'd pierced the atmosphere. The resistance was gone. The vacuum of space enveloped us. Meva and I scrambled into the control room. The knobs, levers, and buttons were a complete cipher. Does anything look familiar to you? Said Meva. I'm a miner, Meva, not an astronaut. Don't worry, sir. We're a family now. I'd rather be here with you and P than back at my father's palace. Though hurtling through space, I can say that in this moment, I'm complete. I laughed and my heart grew stronger. I said, "You are Armikrog. That's what I shall call you from now on." Meva's face contorted. That's a horrible sounding word. What does it mean? A wrinkled man of the Wenati Desert tribe was sold into slavery and worked with a mining crew. Whenever his hammer fell on walls that were too hard to be chipped, he would shout, "Armikrog!" at the rock. That's you, the immovable rock. Meva shook her head and laughed. Never call me that ugly name. Okay, I said, and held on my breath. Armikrog. I heard that! Desperation. No water for 4 days, could be 5. Everything's empty, there's no food on this craft. Pete doesn't seem to mind. She remains healthy, but seems sad at the sight of Meva and I starving. No more giggling, no more crystals. For a while we could make her laugh, and she would provide plutonium to power the ship. We're too weak. The ship's moving, but we don't know where it's going. If I take the last crystal out of the grid, the ship will stop, but so will the life support system. The color in the last crystal's fading. We could be dead soon. I tried in vain to limit the controls, too alien and strange. I declare my love for Meva to whoever finds this. More desperation. I decided to do the only thing that might save us. I will use a soul transfer device to put myself into the ship. Then I might be able to figure out how to operate the ship's foreign controls. At first, Meva begged me not to do it. She reminded me of the risks and of the strange things that had happened to some of the Spurs, but eventually even she saw the necessity of it. I would either die from starvation lying on the floor of the ship, or I would die trying to save us. Meva kissed me and relented. A crazy plan. We clamped one of the soul transfer device's arms onto the control panel and the other onto my arm. Meva reminded me that she would only give me 1 minute. She wasn't going to risk any more time. I nodded and she pushed the button. The purple fuzzball beating inside the device cast light around the room, and I went into the ship. The first sensation I felt was a lack of feelings. The aching hunger was gone. The pangs of starvation that racked my body slipped away in an instant. It was a relief, but then I remembered the short time I had and turned my mind to other things. I could sense our place in space. Nearby planets and stars took shape in my mind, and their names came to me, although I'd never seen them before. I realized the ship must have some sort of navigation computer or log. At this thought, more information poured into me. I could see the ship's entire history in a moment, but my mind grasped at another image, P's crib. P's crib was being pulled aboard by a desperate-looking crew during the heat of battle. The ship's door was sealed before taking off. The crib was chained to the wall. P was force-fed cans of beans to increase her output of plutonium. She didn't laugh or smile. The crew's planet needed plutonium to survive. There were other planets that wanted plutonium too, and were willing to kill for it. As far as the ship's computer identified P as the last of her kind. Meva's voice echoed inside me. She was telling me to hurry. She was going to transfer me back. In a panic, I pulled my mind from the computer, though there were so many more questions I knew it could answer, but I had to get to that control panel. Its levers and knobs were instantly familiar to me. I dimmed the bright lights and made it difficult to sleep. I discovered a water generator had been switched off. I turned it on, the ship's water storage began to fill. But something was wrong. Not all the controls were working. I could make only a minor adjustment to our speed. I couldn't reverse our course, and I couldn't change our trajectory. I dove deeper into these controls, tracing their connections until I found the problem. There were 2 dents in the hole where the ship had been hit by missiles but were escaping. One had torn the metal open and damaged the ship's controls. I used the navigational computer to quickly chart a course. We were headed for a nearby planet. I calculated how long it would take to reach it. At that moment, I woke to the sensation of liquid on my face. Meva had pulled me up. She was smiling, holding a container of cool water. I drank it down in big gulps, but it did little to satiate the gnawing hunger in my stomach or the growing fear in my mind. I told her the bad news. We were about to crash land, and there was nothing we could do to stop it. Life after the crash. A crash landing is difficult to describe with accuracy. When in the middle of it, I didn't think the tumbling would end. It was more like an assault than an event to my mind. Surrounded by noise and violence, papers, paneling, and even my own clothing blurred past my face. I remember the weird details in times of crisis that come for no apparent reason. I saw a metal tool tumble by. I looked at my own hand and considered my own anatomy in slow motion. I don't know why these are the things I remember. When it was finally over, we climbed from the wreckage with few injuries. Meva's arm was broken, and I was bleeding from a gash in my forehead. P's crib landed on top of her, but instead of harming her, it kept objects from crushing her. At the time, I thought it probably saved her life. Behind us was a jagged line scratched into the planet's surface that documented the trajectory of our landing. Pieces of our ship was ripped from the hull by trees and rocks and scattered to either side of that line. The air was thicker than our home planet, but gravity was comparable, and the yellow haze protected us from direct sunlight. Meva knew enough of the healing arts to talk me through resetting her arm in a difficult ordeal. She and P took shelter under low-hanging branches while I went in search of anything that could be salvaged from the wreckage. Over the course of that day, I dragged chunks of the ship's carcass back to Meva, where she, using her one good arm, assembled a makeshift shelter. Pete seemed oblivious to the peril of our situation. I'd put bushes on my head and dance around for her, which consistently made her giggle. Pete's happiness was a comfort to Meta. The first night we huddled together in our shelter and listened to strange animal noises that put a chill in our bones. This planet sounded all the more threatening, and I knew it would be a matter of time before a beast broke into our temporary housing. Most days I worked on the water generator. The few sources of water we had were nearly exhausted, and a survey of the area revealed no water, though there were plants growing on the hillside that I assumed had water to survive. The water generator wouldn't power on, and I considered leaving Meva and P to go on a more exhaustive search for water. Another howl, deep and brooding, came from the forest, as if to threaten me if I ventured too far from the camp. Our love for P motivated us to keep trying, and it kept us from falling into despair. I fused 3 wires on the water generator, and it came on for a few seconds, then made a popping sound and seized up in a cloud of smoke. I feared I might have damaged it beyond repair, so in desperation I used the soul transfer device to put myself into that infernal machine. Once inside I could see clearly what must be done. I also discovered that the water generator was actually a matter generator. It could pull water from anywhere because it changed the array of any molecule into water. With a little work, the water generator became a matter generator. I was able to make simple objects with it. I started with bricks, then made hammers, screws, bolts, and basic levers. I repaired the power grid. Using the green engine room as a power generator, we fed plutonium into the grid. It offered more than enough power for anything we needed. Previous visitors. During the day when there were less animals roaming around, Meva and I explored the surrounding area to discover we landed on the far end of a long valley. On the opposite of the valley, we found a rock with testimonies of previous visitors scratched onto its great surface. We do not know who wrote them, but wrote a commentary on each of them to acknowledge that they are part of our history. Boron. Okay. He was a great scientist who flew to this planet hoping to perform experiments using an artifact of time bending. The date next to Boron's name suggests he landed on the planet some 500 in the future, and the space maps he drew are beyond the accuracy and scope of contemporary maps. Boron discovered a planet he named 26229, and was considered by the future scientific establishment as having similar parameters to his home planet. Boron applied his time-bending theories to space travel and blasted off to live on planet 26229. His last words are here carved onto the stone before leaving. "Let us get this show on the road." Armikrog. He was a great military commander. Armikrog's body was so badly injured in various wars that it was mostly replaced by machine parts, including 15-foot robotic legs. One day, his suit was so badly injured in metal that he used a furnace-tending suit as a replacement. He could no longer fight in wars, but he could still tend to the furnace, so he remained thankful. He had a strange pet, a flat-faced, tentable-maned Cephia kraken. Zillith. An adventurous blind girl named Zillith wore the 7th ring of Eureka while hiking, and it transported her to a faraway land. She lost her old guide animal and went hunting for a new guide animal known as a half-mongrel. A half-mongrel won't tolerate being stared at, so he never got mad at blind Zillith. She scratched his soft fur and felt his facial expressions to learn his moods. They became inseparable friends. Zillith never returned home, but always had company to keep her warm thanks to her half-mongrel. Armikrog. There was once a scientist who spent so much time in his laboratory alone that he went mad. This is Armikrog, the inventor of the procrastinator ray. He hated this planet, but found he couldn't leave. This made him angry because he thought he was so smart, and he was smart, that he would be able to find a way off the planet. He began to work on a portal to another dimension. This technology is fictional at best, but he claimed to get the idea from his deceased wife who visited him in a dream while in feverish delirium. Armikrog built his interdimensional gate, which looked like 4 logs bound together by rope. We found the gate, but also a book of Armikrog's mad theories next to his skeleton, which lay at the base of the gate. For reasons of my own, I believe Armikrog has something to do with the disappearance of Boron. Blackton. Claims to discover cave walls covered in ancient finger paintings. His devices of measurement dated the paint used on the wall to be at least 5,000 years old. These could be the oldest inhabitants of the planet. The most fascinating thing about the cave paintings was that they depicted 99 generations who came before them. The first of that line could be the first being ever to live. The long... so maybe this is the Hall of Records in the neighborhood. The long lineage could also imply that this lineage went on forever into the past and that only 99 beings could fit onto the wall before the most recent generation ran out of space. One other being is scribbled on the edge of the wall, who has a head, 2 arms, and 2 legs like most beings we know, but he is covered in warm flesh, has hair on his head, and wears a unique hat and shoes. A translation of the inscription under this cave painting sounds something like human being from Earth, but none of us know what that means. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Okay, maybe that's not the Neverland Hall of Records, because none of those characters look like that. Logness is an honorable and noble being who lived just over 1,200 years ago. He invented an RGB bomb that altered the light of any area within a stone's throw. Logness discovered a distant star that radiated green plutonium energy. One day, that distant planet mysteriously stopped emitting plutonium energy. This is speculation, but could this have something to do with P? Nickelnaut. Walter Nickelnaut was the first astronaut from the planet Ixen to find this world some 272 years ago. His ship didn't run on Entonium, but on magic. That was back when magic was real. He came to this planet entirely by accident when he crossed a then unknown hyperspace lane. Tommynaut was jettisoned across the universe sideways before ejecting from his craft just before crashing to the planet's surface. This concludes my commentary on history written on stone. Building statues. I used the generator to build statues of my own likeness, and I gave them simple mechanized skeletons so they could help me work. They were capable of working even if I left the room. They were linked by a nerve net, so if I transferred my soul into one, I could move between them. With my crew of mechanical workers, we built 3 great towers and 1 lesser tower that would be modeled after Meva's likeness. A great surrounding wall was erected to keep any hostile animals out. Meva and I wrote out laws on walls and the doorposts and in journals. Even the statues were capable of repeating the laws. We wanted P to be raised in a family that respected each other first and the self second. We assumed that P would long outlive us. It is our desire that these laws be the foundation of our little society. The name. This fortress has been built to protect my family and our ways. These words have been written on it so that you may know us better. If you are friends, take shelter, for to you we freely give this place. But be warned, however, if you seek to bring harm to this family, I have already bent my will against you. Though I am a kind and gentle friend, I am an even fierce and terrifying enemy. If your designs are for harm, I will unleash Meva's wrath upon you. The 3 engines will unite, and the ignite, and the Harbinger will be awakened. Enemies, know the name of this fortress and fear it. Armikrog. I want to write that last part down because that's going to be a clue, I'm sure. Okay, 3 engines ignite. Harbinger awakened. Alright, now we're pretty sure that someone has already, in fact, come here to Armikrog to inflict harm on the family. We think that Zerk might already be dead. The statues are now obviously Zerk, and this is obviously the same P that Tommynaut found. We don't know where Meva is. I'm thinking that Zerk probably had to transfer his soul into the statues permanently because his body was dying because of the guy with the knife. I'm assuming that was one of the knots. We'll find out. But that'll do it for this episode. We got all the way through the Hall of Records. We'll find the secrets of Armikrog in the next episode. And until then, keep playing games, because games rock. Read my words and be my friend. Father commands me to record the truth of history so that readers will learn from those who went before. Oh, I am Quata.